very well. Yeah.
बरोबर.
सर सुरू करूयात.
Yeah.
Okay. So good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this PIC Adda on a special talk. Today we get a talk on India-China boundary conundrum, the ground reality. It is given by Mr. Nitin Gokhale, who is the national analyst and a renowned author, and who is also from Pune. Let me tell you a little bit on Pune International Center. So Pune International Center is basically a think tank. It comprises of around more than 300 odd members who are extremely good professionals who are residing in Pune or who are basically from Pune. The idea of PIC is to create a platform for open discussion and for stimulating debates by mobilizing the intellectual resources with which the city of Pune is comprising of. It is so richly endowed. Its also idea is to promote activities and programs which has strong emphasis on involvement of youth so as to build and help future development and leadership qualities into them and to inspire a new generation to create positive and social change based on the eternal human values in the UN Charter and Indian Constitution. There are multiple programs which are conducted by Pune International Center, and they are mostly related to multiple verticals which are existing within the PIC as an organizational structure. So there are seminars, there are talks which are conducted, there are some debates which are conducted, some workshops are also being held. National Innovation is one of the major program which is conducted by Pune International Center along with the talks and seminars. Out of multiple verticals that PIC has, PIC Adda is one special one in which we invite the luminaries from Pune and or different areas and it is intended mainly for the PIC members. However, in the current time, since we are on the online platform, we are lucky to have it kept open for all the people who would be interested in a particular topic. So today we talk on this India-China boundary issue, and we have a very good speaker with us today, Mr. Nitin Gokhale. I would now request Air Marshal Bhushan Gokhale, who is a founder member of Pune International Center. I request him to introduce the speaker. Air Marshal Gokhale, please.
Thank you, Sangeeta. It's with great sorrow that I stand in. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we are able to hear. Yes.
It's with great sorrow that I stand in place of Dr. Amitabh Malik today for this last Adda of the 2020. As some of you would know, Malik expired yesterday and he requested me to stand in. But on behalf of all of us, we extend our heartfelt condolences and prayers to the departed soul. Sangeeta has already mentioned we got a very erudite speaker today this morning, Nitin Gokhale. Many of us know him, many of us follow him. There are many things that he does, including the Simply Nitin, a very signature that he always airs every week. And he's going to be speaking about China. As you know, 2020 has been a very peculiar year. We started with what is actually called the Wuhan virus, but then all of us refer to it as COVID-19. All the economies world over have been devastated, including that of India, affected. Millions of people have died. But in all this, Chinese have taken the opportunity to do expansionism in a way and have attacked us at Ladakh. What earlier called the line of controls. And as such, there has been a standoff for many, many months now. We also had the one in between. And presently, while the winter is very harsh in Ladakh, there are many talks that are going on, including the yesterday's talk for disengagement with tangible results. To throw light on what exactly is the position in the Chinese border all across and what exactly is the impasse about, we couldn't have had a better speaker than Nitin Gokhale. As you know, I always call him as an embedded strategic analyst because he goes to actual fronts and finds out on ground what is going on. So he's had an excellent career. Many of us are members of his various platforms that he has created. But let me just read out for you specifically what his biography reads. Nitin is a media entrepreneur, strategic affairs analyst, and author of 8 books on military history, insurgencies, and wars. His latest book, released on 13th December, is the authorized biography of former Defense Minister and Chief Minister of Goa, Sri Manohar Parrikar. Last year, he authored a book on founder of RNAW, Mr. R.N. Kaur. One of South Asia's leading strategic analysts, Nitin started his career in journalism in 1983. In the past 37 years, he has teams of journalists across print, broadcast, and web platforms. A specialist in conflict coverage, Gokhale has lived and reported from India's northeast for 23 years, been on the ground at Kargil in the summer of 1999, and also brought us live reports from Sri Lanka's alarm war between 2006 to 2009. An alumni of Asia Pacific Center for Security Studies in Hawaii, Nitin now writes matters in Indo-Pacific and travels regularly to China, Europe, South and Southeast Asia to take part in various seminars and conferences. Nitin is also a popular visiting faculty at India's Defence Services Staff College, the 3 war colleges, India's National Defence College, College of Defence Management, and IB's Intelligence School. He now owns and runs 2 important portals, bharatshakti.in and statnewsglobal.com. With these few words of introduction, over to Nitin. Nitin, please take over.
Thank you very much, Bhushan Gokhale sir. Good morning and welcome all of you to this Saturday's Adda. As you can see, it's cold in Delhi. It's about now 12 degrees. I don't know how much it is in Pune, but why I'm mentioning the temperature in Delhi is imagine what the temperature would be at the LAC right now. Yesterday morning, in fact, one of the officers there, one of my former students from the higher command course, sent me a message saying, and a photograph saying, this is very sunny here, bright and sunny at 7:30 in the morning. But can you imagine the temperature? So I asked him, how much is it? So he said it's minus 28 degrees. I won't tell you where exactly he is, but he's in eastern Ladakh. So you can imagine how much of it is part of the challenge that India faces, or even the Chinese soldiers face in eastern Ladakh. Bright early morning, sunny morning, it's minus 28. At night, it must be going further down. But first of all, let me thank everyone at the Pune International Center. Of course, I am a member there. But to give me an opportunity, it's an honor that all of you think that I can shed some light on what's happening there. There are better informed and better knowledgeable people, or more knowledgeable people on China. I can see who are listening in. I dare not go beyond what they know, but I take courage from the fact that I am perhaps the only one here in this closed door meeting, at least, who has traveled to Ladakh for about 8 days in mid-October, which was still tolerable in terms of temperature and the weather. And what I'm going to share here is actually based only on that. I've deliberately kept out the strategic aspects of the India-China problem as it exists today, as it stands today. I'm only going to talk about the ground reality, and that's why we have said India-China conundrum, the ground reality. So with that, let me start my presentation because I thought let me speak through pictures rather than, as they say, one picture is more than worth 1,000 words. So what I'm going to say initially is based on my visit, as I said, and then we'll talk about how do we go further or what is expected in the near future. So just for everybody's reference, those who know, of course, know. But if you look at the area, the black line that you see is the so-called India-China boundary or the Aksai Chin. All of you are now familiar with all these names. You can see the road going next to the dark dotted line. You can see coming from left to right and going down. That's supposed to be the entire Aksai Chin boundary. But in between, to its left, you will see a road. It's called the Aksai Chin Road, which was built by the Chinese in the late 50s, which we came to know, India came to know about its existence very late. And beyond that, between that road and the red line that you see, the dotted red line, is the area which the Chinese have occupied since the 1950s or late 1950s. It's nearly 33,000 square kilometers. The LAC is denoted by the red dotted line, and you can see the familiar names there. I don't know how many of you can see that, but Hot Spring, Kongakla, PP14, Daulat Beg Oldie, of course, is on the top, and the Karakoram Pass there. And the blue area that you see in blue is the Pangong Lake, which is the area of contention. And the Shiok River I have also shown here, Leh, and of course, this is part of Ladakh. So this is where the theater of conflict right now is, although the line of actual control and the McMahon line extends right up to Arunachal Pradesh in the east through Sikkim and Uttarakhand. There's the Galwan River. The Galwan clash, as all of you know by now, has occurred had occurred on 15th of June 2020. But this is the lake, the Pangong Lake, which is now, of course, more famous for the conflict that happened in early May and subsequently the action taken there. This lake is about 130 kilometers long. It's a saltwater lake in major parts of this area, and it is divided between India and Tibet, or India and China, if you want to call it. Nearly 65 kilometers is in India, from left to right as you go, and then beyond that it goes into Tibet. That's Pangong for you. Now I want to show you all these contentious areas like finger 4, finger 5, right up to 8, and just explain where we are and what is the perception of the line of actual control. Now, if you see, the lake, of course, is in blue. Finger 1 to finger 4 is under India's control. But if you see a small dotted line where the LAC China has been denoted with an arrow at the bottom of the screen, there is a dotted line there. So the base that India has, or a post India has, it is between finger 3 and finger 4, and that post that is there. And beyond that, Indian patrols had to really walk from that point where the line ends, and the dotted line is the path, a single man path taking you to finger 4 and then beyond to finger 5. So that road built by the Chinese between finger 8 from your screen on from the right to left was built or started. They had started building this in 1999, and Indian patrols used to go right up to finger 8. And not Sirijap, which was in 1962 under Indian control, but was taken over by the Chinese or run over by the Chinese. Now, the Indian perception of the LAC, as you can see, runs through more or less finger 7, the purple line that you see. And the Chinese perception of the LAC is also the purple line, of course, but it runs through finger 4 and goes down into the lake. That is where the contentious part is between finger 4 and finger 7, really. Indian patrols used to go, as I mentioned, frequently, not so frequently really, every month, maybe once a month. And the Chinese patrols used to come up to Finger 4. Since May, Indian patrols have been, the army patrols have been prevented from being going past Finger 4. They cannot go there because the Chinese have come up to Finger 5 and almost to Finger 4. That is the reality since May 2020. That is the first area of contention. This is where I show you the round the oval shape I've done. That is where the area of Indian control ends really at Finger 4. And now Indians have not been able to go beyond Finger 4 right now. Coming to south bank of Pangangso, there was a counter operation done by India to go and occupy some of the heights on the ridge line called the Kailash range of mountains, and all the blue dotted areas that have been shown from Gurung Hill, the Magar Hill, the Mukpari, Rechinla, Rizangla have been occupied by Indian forces in a swift counter operation on the night of 29th and 30th of August. This looks into the Chinese garrison at the Moldo Hut, of course, is the meeting point, the border personnel meeting that happens in Chushul, as you can see. The Spangur gap is a narrow gap of about 5-6 kilometers width, which allows the movement between the south bank of Pangangso and coming into Chushul area. The helmet top and black top, as they are shown, the red spots, and the Spangur, so of course it falls into the Chinese control right now. But what has happened because of this action is after India has occupied these heights and taken tanks, T-72 tanks to Rizangla and Rechinla and to Mukpari, Indians have been able to look deep into the Chinese garrison, which is beyond Moldo. And that has really rattled the Chinese. They're really upset about it. And that is where India has got some foot in the door, I would say, and some equal footing it has gained in the negotiations since then. And that is why we slow down in the negotiations, but we'll talk about that as we go along. Now, the other contentious area is the Depsang DBO plains. Now, Daulat Beg Oldi, as you can see here, is near Karakoram Pass, and the area where I have written Aksai Chin is the Depsang plains. Now here, India or Indian Army patrols used to go up to some of these patrolling points, which does not denote control, but it shows that India has the claim line. And these patrolling points 10, 11, and 12 were frequently patrolled. But the Depsang standoff, there is a Y junction at Depsang where the road forks out to two different directions. The Chinese can see at quite a distance from their post. And the moment Indian patrols start from some of these places to go to those patrolling points 10, 11, and 12, they come and stand at the Y junction and block Indian patrols going on that road. That has also been going on since May, although this dispute or this kind of a standoff or face-off has been going on since 2010. So what the Indian Army has done, or Indian authorities have decided, that they will de-link Depsang DBO contention or contest from the situation on the north and the south bank of Pangangso or at Galwan, PP14 and Hot Springs, something of that kind. I'm just giving you a brief snapshot of this, what has happened there and what is the ground situation. Now, going forward, why are the Chinese doing all this? There are several theories and there are some of them believable, some not. But there is also a development that has taken place on the Indian side. The DSDBO road, for instance, if I go back and show you, from the Shiok village right up to Daulat Beg Oldi, it's a 230-kilometer road from Leh to Daulat Beg Oldi, has given India new access or easier access to Daulat Beg Oldi, the DBO, where there is a small airstrip which can induct forces if need be. But it is at 18,000 feet, remember, that location. And Karakoram Pass, of course, is to the north of Daulat Beg, northwest of Daulat Beg Oldi. That is where the new road has come up, which has given India a certain leverage or a certain ability to induct forces faster. Now, one of the reasons cited by the Chinese, or at least some analysts, is that this road has led to the Chinese coming to the conclusion that if they don't stop the Indian road construction, Indian infrastructure building, then they might face a more assertive, more stronger Indian military in these areas, and this is the time to stop all that. So therefore, and why are they're saying this? Because India, apart from the DSDBA road, has also now built, at least opened, if not completely built or smoothened the operation of this road. There's a new road which has come up from, if you see the Atal tunnel at Rohtang, and the green line, if you see on the right hand side, used to be the, or is the old Manali Leh axis, which is closed for about 6 months because there are three big passes or three passes at high altitudes, Baralachla, Lachungla and Tanglangla, which closed down because of heavy snowfall, and then this road is rendered useless or inoperable. The only other road that gave access to Ladakh or gave access to Leh was from Srinagar to Leh via Zozila Pass, which also closes down from December onwards. This year there is an attempt to keep it open until January at least. And of course, there is a proposal to have a tunnel at Zozila Pass. The Rohtang tunnel then leads to Darcha. So from Darcha, there's a new road alignment that has been cut through by the Border Roads Organization. I traveled on this road for 2 days from Darcha to Nimu and then to Leh. That is the line between the green line and the red line on the left and the green line on the right, which goes through Padam, the Padam Valley or the Zanskar Valley really. So from Darcha, Padam, one gets to Nimu, which is closer to Leh, bypassing or keeping away Zozila, which is closed. So this road is going to give India a major leg up in terms of logistics, in terms of keep supplies open or the access to Ladakh open. And what they're planning is at Simkunla, they're planning a tunnel. So instead of 3 tunnels at Baralachla, Lachungla and Tanglangla, if one tunnel is built at Chinkunla, then this road becomes an extremely important and I would say addition to the access to Ladakh and strategically an important road going forward in the next 3 or 4 years. This is the, of course, the Rohtang tunnel, the Atal tunnel. This is the road I traveled on the right hand side. If you see the picture, this is the road from Darcha to the Zanskar Valley, Padam Valley. There are several beautiful landscape pictures one can take, but it's also a very tough journey by road because the road is still kacha. It's a single track, single lane road at the moment. But in the next 2 years, if everything goes right, it will be a 2-lane road and of course blacktopped. And that for that you must give credit to the Border Roads Organization, the local workers, the workers from what they call Jharkhand, who all come for 6 months and then go back. You must have read in the papers what they do, and of course the engineers and officers of the Border Roads Organization. You can see the middle picture where this part of that road had been one of the problem areas for almost 5 to 6 years. But the BRO brought in some new machinery where they used to cut through 5 meters a day in the earlier years. This machinery allowed them to cut through 25 meters a day. And the officers work day and night with the laborers and have cut through this road, as you can see, where there's an overhang of the hard rock. It took them almost 3 months from May to August, where they cut through this rock and have now opened this road because of that hard work they did day and night there. And we are standing exactly at the spot which was the most tough spot to, or tough area to cut through. That's the picture that even I am there. And you can see on the right hand side, the third picture on the extreme right is the road beyond this portion of the rock, hard rock that I've shown here. And it's now become very smooth. So one can get from Manali to Leh in about 16 hours of continuous driving. If you don't do 16 hours of continuous driving, then you stop at Padam and then get to Leh. So this road has given additional capacity. Of course, the current situation is that because the Chinese have brought in so many forces, so many tanks and artillery guns, even India, for the first time, has a full independent armored brigade posted or deployed farthest ever along the line of actual control. And you can see some of the T-90s, the BMPs and the T-72s lined up here. Of course, the access was little restricted and they didn't want to give out photographs. Neither would I want to give out photographs and locations. But as you can see, these tanks have now come to Ladakh. Of course, they first came in 1948 when the Pakistan thing was the first conflict with Pakistan was happening. They came into Zozila, and then of course in 1962 tanks were flown into Chushul, which had an airstrip, which still has an airstrip, but now of course the tanks have been driven up there or they've been towed there, whatever reasons. They are now there. They give a very big punch and a very big capability to the Indian forces in Ladakh, and that's why I thought I'll just show you some pictures there. More than that, the bigger challenge is, of course, to house the additional soldiers who have come in there. Normally, the Ladakh Corps, the 14 Corps established in 2000, has one division which is about 10,000 troops and another brigade which comes in for exercise every summer. So that's about 13 to 14,000 people in combat, the combat troops. This time, this year, because of the Chinese action, India has had to pump in one more division and maybe, actually, I would say two more divisions in reality in terms of numbers. So there are now a total of 35 to 40,000 troops in Ladakh, which is at least 4 times the normal deployment in eastern Ladakh. And that has created its own problems of logistics, of supplies, of habitat. But the response has been extremely good. These new shelters have been brought in. Some of them are modular shelters. They are heated, and 2 soldiers, as you can see inside, the beds have been put in there. They were new when I went there. They were just brought in there because they were preparing for a harsher winter ahead. This was in mid-October. So this is in the one of the further locations farther away from Chushul, where these, and don't go by the deceptive mountains here, which seem calm and serene and no snow here. This is the peculiarity of most of eastern Ladakh, except Depsan perhaps. It doesn't snow here. And because it doesn't snow, it seems very deceptive. But the wind chill factor and the fact that the temperature is lower, because the Indus River, which flows around these areas, is frozen. I've traveled there earlier in 2010 on the Indus River, which was frozen completely in January 2010. In fact, at the peak of winters, I had spent about 10 days traveling by road along all these eastern Ladakh areas. So this looks very deceptive. There's no snowfall, but it's extremely cold. As I said, minus 28 degrees in the daytime. Maybe now it goes down to minus 40 at night. And if you are at a higher place like Rizangla and Richinla, which is at about 19,000 feet, the temperature will be further down. But anyway, they have tried to get as many comfortable shelters as possible. There are containerized shelters which have been taken up from Punjab when the road was open on trucks. Trucks after trucks brought in these containerized shelters, and these containerized shelters have been provided. Of course, snow clothing has been provided. And of course, there was not enough stock available when this standoff started in May. But now they have adequate for everyone who's deployed there, adequate clothing. So where are we now as far as current situation is concerned? We are about to enter in January, the 9th month of the standoff. Remember, it started on around 5th of May 2020. And even the early warning came through sheer coincidence that the army commander and the corps commander were flying from DBO in their helicopter back to Leh when they noticed some of the movement, which shows some of our weakness in intelligence gathering and tactical intelligence that wasn't available at that point in time. So when the Chinese made this swift move from their exercise area near their highway, the Aksai Chin highway, and came west. India was caught off guard initially. They were surprised. But now we have the longest and the biggest deployment ever on the India-China boundary or the border or the LAC, whatever you call it. The fact is, on ground, this is the longest deployment. If you don't count the Sundaram-Chu deployment, because Sundaram-Chu in Arunachal Pradesh, the standoff lasted for more than 7 to 8 years. I think I may not be exact on the duration, but it started off in 86, 87, and I think was resolved only around 94. So about 8 years, I think that was there. But that was a small, less than a brigade size deployment. This is almost 3 divisions, which is in absolute numbers, just going by convention, would be about 30,000 people straight away, not counting the support services and the others there. And of course, it has lasted for more than 9 months in Eastern Ladakh now, or more than 8 months now. Air Force has also moved many of its assets, even from southern India, to Eastern Ladakh or to near Ladakh, or to look at Ladakh's deployment or the Chinese deployment. And they are very closely facing each other. They're very close to each other. In fact, at Rizangla and Richimla, I've seen photographs which I didn't want to share, and they, of course, the army didn't want to share. The opposing tanks are just 400 meters away. Fortunately, their barrels are turned back. So the barrels are in the opposite direction, but the tanks are facing each other just 400 meters away. One very funny fact that happened, funny thing that happens there is what the troops on ground tell me, is that both sides have to start the engine of the tank every 3 hours, even through the night and through the day, so that the engine doesn't seize, it doesn't get frozen over. So the ritual is that every 3 hours, one of the sides will start the engine of the tank, and the other side will respond. They will keep it running for 10 minutes or 15 minutes, and then switch off, and then come back after every 3 hours. That's something that is happening. Fortunately, except for that Galwan clash, which was more a medieval clash with clubs and lathis and fisticuffs, there has been 2 or 3 occasions when people came to very close to firing their shots through their guns that they carry. At one place in North Penang, so there was a firing by Indians in the air, but not at the Chinese soldiers when they tried to come too close to them. This is the challenge. Never have so many troops been stationed in high altitude for such a long time. There are deployments that happen in Siachen. People go up and stay for 3 months, and they are rotated. Not that here it will not be rotated, but in the beginning, at least for the first 6 months, same troops have lived at those high altitudes. It may not have been very uncomfortable in the first 2-3 months during the summer months, but now it is becoming very difficult to stay. But both sides face the same problem. Maybe Indians are slightly better off because they are used to that kind of deployment in Siachen Glacier since 1984. The challenges are manifold. One, of course, to keep the supply line open. Huge amount of fuel is required, for kerosene especially, to keep the shelters heated through the bukharis that they have. You have to have food given in time, or reaching all these outposts in time. That is a challenge because the roads get closed, as I said, from end of December this time, maybe early January. So they have to stock up for the next 6 months, or at least next 4 months, until the roads open in late April, early May. High altitude brings its own set of medical challenges. Even the fittest of person, if not acclimatized in a 3-stage acclimatization schedule, may just collapse. There is high altitude pulmonary edema that happens. There is lack of appetite that happens. There is also some kind of hallucination that happens in high altitude if you don't sort of come down to a certain altitude once in a while. So there are several challenges. The doctors are a very important aspect or factor. Medical teams and doctors are extremely crucial for survival of the troops there. In fact, one soldier, I remember not here, but in Siachen when I had gone, when I was writing the book on Siachen, when I was researching, that remark has stayed with me, where the officer said, the Hector, Doctor, and Porter are our gods here. Hector is, of course, in military parlance, Hector is a helicopter. The doctor, of course, is a medical doctor, and the porters in Siachen, the local hardy Ladakhis who carry loads going up to the heights of 23,000 feet, are the lifeline of the deployment of Indian Army there. So Hector, Doctor, Porter, that line has always stayed with me. Those are the challenges that they face, but the Indian Army has managed to overcome some of them. The reality is there is a military stalemate, which is right now a status quo which the Chinese had tried to alter, as I said, but it was foiled. The line has been held by the Indian forces, Indian Army, and backed by the Indian Air Force, where now the Chinese have not been able to go forward. Now, what happened from what I gathered after meeting so many people there in those 8 days is that initially, as I said, India was surprised. There was an initial setback where the Chinese had the advantage of being a first mover, but the swift response and the matching deployment was not something that the Chinese expected. Especially the swift response in the sense of getting deployments immediately coming in there. Now, that is because for years, Indian military has been planning for some of these intangibles. There is a vast difference between 1962 and 2020. One is that, of course, India has managed to get forces in quickly. Second is the supply position, the comfort levels are far better. And the army is not deployed in penny packets as they were in 1962. Which of course was a complete debacle, as we know, and a rout where a lot of people were taken prisoners. That hasn't happened here, and I think I don't know why the Chinese are surprised, because they should have known that the Indian Army of that time and this time there is a huge difference. But the sense I got from the Indian military leadership is that in the talks in the past couple of months, October and November, the Chinese have been saying, let's disengage, let's de-escalate, but they haven't really sort of translated that discussion into implementing that plan or that wish. So maybe they're speaking in folk tongue, I suppose. But the fact is that Indian military has managed to retrieve the situation after the initial setback because of plans in place and the excellent logistics supply management chain that has been perfected or has been fine-tuned over the years. The Kailash Range operation, as I mentioned, 29th, 30th August, has helped India to regain equal footing in the negotiations, and therefore the Chinese are now also looking to de-escalate. They, of course, keep talking about it. Yesterday's meeting, you would have seen how they have talked about, both sides have issued statements. There is one vital difference there. The Chinese say to maintain peace and tranquility on the boundary or on the border. We say we need the status quo ante restored as it existed in early May 2020. That's the difference in perception. I think that is why the delay. Otherwise, the Chinese had almost, I'm told, in the 8th round of the Corps Commanders meeting, had agreed to go back to finger 8, because that's more about optics. If they go back to finger 8 and they also then agree to create a buffer zone between finger 4 and finger 8, India would have done well to retrieve the situation completely. Whether that will happen or not, I cannot say. It is up to what kind of pressures and what kind of objectives the Chinese have and what the Indians want as far as that particular part of the stalemate is concerned. As I said, they were not. The Chinese were really surprised that India didn't pack up like our cricket team in Australia this morning when they came in the early part of May with artillery, with tanks, with large number of troops. And I think that has now resulted in a stalemate that we are talking about. Now, what next? And I'm going to take just 5 more minutes and then we'll come to a thing. Oh, not even 5, 2, 3 minutes. So what has happened is all the carefully crafted border pacts since 1993 onwards are more or less rendered useless because the trust has been lost after what happened in Galwan. I don't need to elaborate on that. The fact is there is now going to be a more militarized, more operationally deployed troops on the LAC. That's the reality. Even if one division withdraws or goes back to its peace location in Himachal Pradesh, there will be a couple of brigades which will keep rotating in the summer and in the winter months so that India doesn't get surprised again or it's not found wanting on the ground there. I quote here overall relationship between India and China, as former National Security Advisor Shankar Menon has just written or actually spoke at one, I think he delivered a speech and that has been converted into a 3-part article where he says it's going to be antagonistic, adversarial and contentious, the relationship. There is no dispute on this because in one swift stroke, the Chinese have, for whatever reason, lost the trust of the 1.3 billion Indians. And that is now manifest everywhere in the tech field, in 5G, in some of the investment areas, in the startups that the Chinese were doing. Whether this can be sustained, can be carried forward, is again for experts to talk about. But this is where the relationship is headed right now. And the reality is India's defense budget, especially for the Army and the Air Force, will have to go up. I do not know if there are naval officers here or former naval officers here in this audience, but India's look east policy or the maritime plans for the next decade will have to slow down because willy-nilly India will have to spend more on the Army and the Air Force because that's where along the land boundary the threat exists at the moment. The Chinese are not as strong as they are on the land. They're not as strong in the ocean, or at least the Indian Ocean region, as they are on the land, and therefore India will have to spend there. Outcome: how does India deal with this? The current standoff will be watched across Asia. Doklam was one off, or India has a now streak of a stubbornness that the Chinese had underestimated will be known once the outcome of this standoff occurs in the coming months, maybe. All indications are that both sides want de-escalation, disengagement. On what terms is the question. And that's where I think the talks are stuck right now. But everyone around Asia, at least, will be watching. And of course, the bigger powers like United States and Japan will also be looking at what the outcome is. But the smaller nations, Vietnam, Philippines, Indonesia, all of them will be looking at the outcome. And this is what will determine the future trajectory in the coming decade as far as India and China is concerned. I'm going to stop here. This is the Shinkunla Pass. The last pictures, one picture is repeated here. Shinkunla Pass is at 16,580 feet. And this is going to be a new tunnel here that is going to come up. I'm particularly showing this picture because the snow clothing or the jackets that have been issued, the picture on the right hand side, the olive green jacket, is the one that I borrowed from the army because I was feeling cold. And this is an excellent jacket produced, manufactured in India. So if you are reading reports that there is a shortage and we are importing everything, they are true and false both, because these were short in supply, but now Indian manufacturers are stepping up to meet the challenge and meet the supplies there. I'm going to end here, and then I'm open for discussion and whatever remarks people may have. Thank you very much for this opportunity once more.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Nitin Gokhale, for a very nice talk and covering a good spectrum, right from the details of the border, what is actually there in near Ladakh and near the Kailash range, You also well covered the scenario, the harsh weather, the road conditions, everything, and finally coming to the challenges that the people may face, the Indian Army may face, and the challenges which are on set. Thank you, sir. There are some questions. So they are already put up in question and answers box. I'll ask you few of them. So the first question is from Mr. Rahul Matslekar. He says that while armed forces morale is expected to be high, what is your assessment of local citizens and nomads? Have they shown any, have they reacted to this Chinese forces?
So shall we take a couple of questions together, or you want me to answer one by one?
So that there are not many, so we can go one by one. Yeah.
Okay. Right. So well, the Ladakhis have been always been very supportive of India's armed forces. They have, and especially those who are deployed in that area. I don't think their morale is low. Although I must say that I'll share something that I experienced in 2014 when I went around Eastern Ladakh again, meeting villagers in Chushul, Sheok and Darbuk. Their grouse, if at all, is that they do not have the basic facilities like telephone or even a road connectivity. They didn't have. That has improved. So their morale, I think, is far better. And I think they see the Chinese as not welcome. There is an old traditional enmity between the Tibetans and the Ladakhis, if you really go into history. But that notwithstanding, here they look at it as the Chinese aggression, which is not good for India, and therefore they are fully supportive of the Indian armed forces.
Okay, so thank you. The next question is from Asim Joshi. He's asking that could you comment on the role of Tibetan exiles, that is Special Frontier Force? Are these optics for public Chinese consumption or a real force that is adapted for combat in high altitude?
Well, I think he's answered his own question in a way. This is really optics. There was only one company of the SFF which was deployed in the operation on the 29th and 30th. To my knowledge, there may be better informed people, but only just one company is about 100 people. There is also Ladakh Scouts. Let's not forget. So let's not overblow or make them into 10 feet tall achievers as far as this operation or their role is concerned. Yes, they are part of a larger plan if need be. If there is a real conflict, they are hardy people, they are well-trained people, but they didn't have much of a role to play here. If you look at the sheer number of infantry soldiers and armored soldiers and artillery troops that have been involved on the regular troops on the Indian Army, and the Ladakh Scouts, which is a local population-based force, which is the Ladakh Scouts Regiment, they have also played a part. So let's not give them undue importance. Yes, they are an important optics and a good perception management tool for having done that operation or sort of being part of that operation against the Chinese. But let's be realistic also.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, sir. There, I do not see more questions here in the question box. Dr. Vijay Kelkar, sir, do you want to have any? Do you want to give any comments or any questions from your side? Vijay Kelkar, sir.
Can you hear me, Sangeeta?
Yes.
No, I don't know questions. I'm really just want to say how wonderful the presentation was. It answered many unasked questions in my mind at least, and but I don't have any further questions.
Okay, thank you, sir. So there's one more question from Mr. Pramod Atle. He's asking, isn't the fact India imports most weaponry a key vulnerability vis-a-vis China?
Sorry, I didn't get the. Can you read that question?
Yeah. What he wants to ask is that isn't the fact that India imports most weaponry a key vulnerability vis-a-vis China? So what he wants to say is that.
Yeah, I got that. Yeah, okay. Yes, of course, that is the key vulnerability. But I think despite talking about Make in India, trying to be self-reliant and self-sufficient in weapons platforms, I think India has been remiss in not paying sufficient attention to cultivating or creating own military-industrial complex. And that is, of course, now showing up in every small skirmish and conflict, because then we run to import ammunition, we run to import some of the critical equipment. So that is certainly a vulnerability. But I think this should be a wake-up call. This prolonged deployment and the need for your own weapons and your own platforms will be now acutely felt and must be pushed as it is being done right now, from what I know.
Yeah, true that. Okay. Thank you, sir. Now I'll request Marshal Bhushan Gokhale for the closing remarks and also for vote of thanks. Marshal Gokhale.
Brilliant. And on behalf of myself, Sangeeta, and all the participants, let me give you a virtual applause.
Thank you.
It's been really nice to hear you and get the entire in-depth analysis of 40,000 troops, both sides standing eyeball to eyeball, and this harsh winter. And I think India has stood its ground. I think the world opinion is also with India, and everybody, like you said, is watching us. I think our policy of first in, first out, I think we are holding forth in all our discussions with Chinese. And one thing good is that the whole entire nation is behind the armed forces, supporting as we are always. And you yourself applauded the various, in making reports, the road organization, the medical staff, and many others. So I think it's been wonderful to listen to you firsthand, many impressions that you have been able to collect yourself and then shared it with us. So we once again thank you and wish that we can continue this kind of interaction with you, if not as Adda, maybe on some other occasion, to get more into this vexed problem of Indo-China military standoff. So on behalf of all of us, let me wish Nitin and all the participants, of course, let me wish for myself a very happy New Year, COVID-free New Year, and thank you very much. Jai Hind.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you for the opportunity. My pleasure.
Thank you, sir.